let's talk about actually holding the pick. And we're going to set the guitar aside for now, focus on the hand and how the pick goes in there. First of all, let's go ahead and remove the pick too and just focus on the hand, because I see a lot of players, especially beginners, that are holding the pick wrong, and we need to dispel some of those things. There are some absolute principles here that we need to abide by. First of all, we want to hold the pick with our thumb and our forefinger, okay? Thumb and forefinger. Next thing is that we don't want to hold the pick like we're trying to get a pinch of salt out of a bowl of salt, okay? That's how a lot of people naturally will try to grab a pick, is they'll hold it in the tips of their finger like that, where the thumb and the finger are pointing in a similar direction. We're not going to do that. We're actually going to almost point them in opposite directions. Not maybe quite opposite. We're not closing our hand, but a very relaxed crossing. Mine ends up being almost, kind of a lazy X is what it ends up being. We're going to end up tucking the pick in the middle of those two fingers so that the point points out of the middle of that X. Okay, but let me go to an illustration that I think will clear up a lot of this, because as I mentioned earlier, we all have different physiologies, and we want to try to play toward our physiology as much as possible. What I mean by that is we need to consider how we naturally do things and try to incorporate that into our playing. That way we have less hurdles to jump over, and that's just how we naturally want to do it. So imagine that me and you meet, and you ask me, hey, do you have a card, by the way? Do you have a business card? And I say, yeah, absolutely. And I pull out a business card and I hand it to you. I want you to imagine that, and I want you to reach out to me right now, and I want you to reach out and act like you're receiving that card. How would you grab that card? How would you reach out and grab it? And I want you to go ahead and close your hand just like you were grabbing that card. And however you closed your hand to grab that card, that's how I want you to start out holding a pick. Boom. So no one reaches out to grab a card from somebody using these first two fingers. Nobody does it like this. They don't clasp with all their fingers. They simply grab the card just like that. Okay? So however you naturally close your hand, your thumb and your forefinger, to grab a card from someone else, or to pick up a card off the edge of a table, you might think of it that way, that's how we're going to create our hand position for that pick. Now, after we've got that position, you could take a look at it, and you could think, okay, is that different than how I'm trying to hold a guitar pick? If so, then you're kind of fighting against your physiology a little bit. So I'm going to take my hand just like that, and then I'm going to slide a pick in. This is a big triangle pick. You may have a teardrop shaped, and that's fine. In fact, I'll switch to a teardrop shape just because it's a little easier to demonstrate. Here's one for you. This is one I found in my drawer. It's got some blonde chick's face on it from the old days. But we're going to act like we're grabbing that card, and I'm going to take this pick, and I'm going to slide it in right in the middle between my two fingers. Okay, so it's not more toward my thumb, and it's not more toward my finger. And the point of this pick is splitting the angle that was created between my thumb and my forefinger. Okay, so that what I don't want is the pick angle to be pointing toward my finger. I don't want the pick angle to be pointing toward my thumb. I want it to be splitting that difference. And as far as how far it sticks out, that's something that you need to experiment with. I know great players that have it sticking out a little further than others. I know some other wonderful award-winning players that barely have the tip of the pick showing. Okay, so that's something that you'll settle into over time. Now, let's talk about the force of your grip there. I once heard Chris Thiele say that he holds his pick only tight enough to where it won't fall out of his hand. I think that takes time to get there, but there's much wisdom in that, of course. He's a master. So the point being that we don't want to apply any extra tension to our pick than what we need. And over time, the amount of pick grip that we need should probably decrease because our dexterity grows. We learn that it's not about playing loud on guitar. It's about grabbing great tone and timing. So that's going to change over time, but it's good to do an audit of your pick grip from time to time and just think, how tight do I really need to hold this? Now, if we hold it too loosely, it's going to just wiggle woggle in our hands, and we're going to run into the same problem that we had with a thin, flimsy pick, in that we're not going to get the reaction that we need. So we're going to squeeze the pick hard enough to make it respond to the strings the way that we want so that we have command and control over it while not introducing any extra pressure. Because why? Extra pressure is extra tension. And anytime that we apply extra tension or strength into our playing, we're going to take away from speed and dexterity ultimately, because that's really the number one goal in our playing, whether it comes to our fret hand, our pick hand, our shoulders. We want to get rid of any extra work that we're trying to do that's not needed. So any extra flexing, any extra grip strength, any extra actual pressure and pressing, we want to minimize that. So it's good to just audit every part of our playing, including how we hold this pick. Okay, so you might just experiment with your pick grip, or you definitely want to experiment with that, both flat picking or cross picking or playing rhythm. How loose can you hold it while still getting the desired effect? Okay, and then we can adjust that according to what we want. Now, our pick grip is also used at times to increase our volume or to accent notes. So I'll pick up the guitar just for a moment to show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to get rid of Miss Taylor's pick and go back to one that I enjoy playing here. Okay, so I'm holding this pick quite loose. And I'm doing what Chris described as just holding the pick tight enough to where it's not spinning around in my finger and it's not flopping out. Now, if I want to accent a strum, I've got a couple different options. I can either hit the guitar harder, right? Or I can increase my pick grip just a little bit. What does that do? That increases or decreases how much your pick bends when it hits the strings. So it's going to go through the strings a little harder, and it's going to increase the volume. So here I am strumming, and I'm not going to change anything else with my right hand, except just start squeezing down the pick a little bit more and listen to the effect. Okay, so I'm doing the same thing with my right hand. I'm using the same strength in my wrist and such, but I just began to increase my pick grip and more volume began to come out of my guitar. So that's quite handy whenever we're playing and we just want to accent a single part. Okay, we can just, we'll learn to kind of flow with our pick grip, strengthen it when needed, whenever we want our volume to grow. That's just one of the tools. There'll be times where we do actually apply more strength through our wrist and our arm, but we need to be aware of how our pick grip can change and customize our volume. Okay, next, let's go into the various axes. I want to talk about how and why we strum and pick our guitar, the different directions that we need to be concerned with, and some mistakes that beginners often make.